Guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Jimmy and today I'm going to go over my beginner's guide to the 40k hobby, looking at the three main aspects of it. So I'm going to be looking at collecting, painting and then gaming. So I'm aiming these videos at an audience that have been in the hobby for probably less than 6 months and maybe don't really know where to go to next, or maybe you're just generally starting out. So no doubt one of these three aspects is what got you into the hobby in the first place. Maybe a friend of yours has been a collector for many years and got you into the gaming side of things, or maybe you just enjoy painting and somebody introduced you to painting the miniatures. But I'm going to start off with collecting. So when it comes to collecting, there's like two aspects to collecting as well as like three aspects to the hobby overall. And they are just painting the miniatures, so you literally just collect them to paint them, and then that's about it. They just look pretty in display cases. And the second aspect to the collecting side of things is for, well, gaming. Well, this channel is called Tabletop War Room, so I'm going to mainly look at the gaming side of the hobby. So, the gaming side of the hobby. Well, what are you going to start with, or what do you need to start with? Well, first of all, the rule book is almost a must. But the good thing is you can actually get the core rules, which are, when I open up the book here, that's the core rules. Very tiny, and you can download them online on the Warhammer community website. But the rest of this book basically is £35 of half of it's fluff, then you've got the rules. Then you have like what to have for a Battleforged army, and open play, and narrative play, match play, and everything, which I will get onto later on when it comes to the gaming side of the hobby. But for now, rulebook is a must-have. The second thing, they're always updating the rules, so another thing that you need to get off the bat as well. Chapter approved, and this one is the latest one, the 2018 edition. So if you're watching this in a couple of years' time, probably be 2020. These usually cost about £20. I think the last one was 15. This one was 20, and that's because of the new Sisters of Battle beta codex that's in here. And they also have up-to-date missions as well. Like here is just some of the Maelstrom of War missions. So basically, you've got to keep up to date. You need chapter approved. And then to finally top it off, the other thing you're going to need is a codex. Now here I've just got one of my Tyranid codex. Inside is everything you need to know about the army. So the army fluff is usually at the front of the book. And then in the middle, towards the end actually, you have the data sheets. So here we've just got like the horror specs, for example, and the information, well, along it. I'm not going to go into detail on how to play the game in this video, but I'm thinking of doing that in a future video, and along with like a list building and looking at the start collecting box sets. Which, talking about start collecting box sets, let's discuss them now. So the start collecting box sets are a great way if you're starting an army to get usually a HQ unit, troops, and then an elites or heavy support, depending on what they decide to put in the actual box set. Now for the examples that I've got, which I'll put up on screen now, we start off with the Eldar, and this is actually quite a good set price range wise, because for £55 you get £88.50 amounts of models in there, as the Farseer himself comes in at 12 quid, the Wraithguard are 30, the Wraith Lord is 28, and the Warwalker is £18.50. So overall, it's a pretty decent box set. You're saving yourself like £33, something along those lines. It's great if you want to start a Wraith army, if you want all Wraith units and Warwalkers, then amazing. But if you're going into collecting Eldar and you want Guardians or a Wave Serpent, then maybe this isn't the box set for you, and you'll look for different avenues on how to either get those models on the cheap, i.e. eBay is a very good place to find these things, or maybe independent sellers. There's a few out there that sell stuff at like 10 to 15% off. Might only save you a quid or two, but to begin with, getting into the hobby, it is an expensive hobby, so any money that you can save, you will do. Next, we have like a little Tau example, and it comes with 3 battle suits, the Ethereal, and a 10-man Fire Warrior team. And this box set costs £60, so there's like a £5 difference in it. But you get £75 worth of models in there, because the 3 battlesuits come in at £45. The Ethereal doesn't actually have a price, because you can't get him, he's only exclusive to the box set. And the Fire Warriors are £30. So, well, including the drones as well, because you get 8 drones. Is it a good box set for Tau? Well, in the current meta, not so much. People don't really use battlesuits all that much. Same with Ethereals. You never really see them that many times on the board. But then the Fire Warrior teams, you can split into 2 units of 5, which seems to be one of the Tau tactics at this current moment in time. So start collecting boxes. Are they worth getting? Well, I'm going to actually do a full-length video at every single starter box going, so every single army in 40k, and I'm going to have my opinions on them and where they could probably improve them a little bit, because it seems that every box set seems to be around a £75 to £85 price range for £55 or £60, depending on what is in the box set. These prices have gone up recently. I think it was February of this year, with 2019, that the prices did go up by either £5 or £10, and they were nice, solid £50 across the board. But unfortunately, these seem to be the model range that has taken the hit, if you will, and the prices have gone up. Another good way of getting quite a few miniatures on the cheap is the larger box sets that come out. I think I'll have an example of the Wrath and Rapture box set that has the Chaos Demons inside. On one side you've got the Chaos Demons of Khorne, and on the other side you've got the Demonettes of Slaanesh. It seems Games Workshop release maybe 3 or 4 of these box sets every year with different armies. A current one that's out is Shadow Spear, which is going to be sadly discontinued soon, which has a new range of Primaris Marines and the new Chaos miniatures that have been released. And then you have the starter box set, which is another great place to begin if you want to play either Death Guard or the Primaris. And again, like I was saying earlier, you need the rulebook. The rulebook's 35 quid, and for an extra 60 quid, you're probably getting about 120 quid's worth of models. My only gripe with the Dark Imperium box set was, because these are the first time these miniatures were released with the new sculpts, they are the quick assembly models, and I personally am not a big fan of the quick assembly models. It takes a lot of the fun out of the building and sort of posing aspects of armies. They look a bit wooden in the quick assembly, but as you progress into the hobby, you'll know what I mean. But as a starting point, fantastic, and definitely worth the money that it costs. One last thing to remember when collecting is it's your hobby. Collect whatever you want, get by whatever you want. That is one gripe that I have amongst the community, is that people say, oh, don't buy that unit because it's completely crap on the tabletop. And why, yeah, for money to cost ratio, what's better and what works, I understand where they're coming from, but at the end of the day, it's like, for me, for my Tyranids, I have the horror specs. It gets a lot of flack in the community as being just like a bullet sponge and not very good. But I love it because it's got a big gawpy face. In fact, I'll put a picture up on it now, and I just love the miniature itself. I like the rules for it. Yes, it's not brilliant, but it serves its purpose in an army if you have something right about it. And that's why I actually, funnily enough, plan on getting a second one. Because if there's 2, then you know your opponent's going to have to deal with twice the amount of damage, and it's only 170 points. So for me, it's not too much of a major investment. It's just a little bit more than the Lehman Russ tank. Yeah, it's similar. It has 1 extra wound, similar armor save, and I can cast Catalyst on it, which gives it a 5-up sort of feel no pain save, which is amazing. So the painting side of the hobby, where's a good place to start? Well, Games Workshop have already thought of this, and they've done an Essentials box set, which comes with a small amount of paints that you'll commonly see, so your more common colours. It also comes with clippers and glue and one of their texture paints, and I think a starter brush, and that comes in at £25, which isn't too bad and will get things done. If you have bought the Dark Imperium box set, then fear not, that Games Workshop has thought again, and you can buy another starter set with either 3 Primaris Marines in it and all the colours to paint your Primaris as Ultramarines, or Death Guard, again, 3 Death Guard Marines are in there, and the colours, again, for your Death Guard army. As you become more confident in your painting ability, you'll eventually start investing in the other paint ranges or the other box sets. Games Workshop do sell some other box sets that come with a lot more traditional colours, like the washes or the glazes. Again, once you're into the hobby, you'll see these box sets and you'll probably think, oh, I'll pick them up, especially if you're one of these that right off the bat are really good at painting. But for most of you, your first couple of miniatures are going to be crap. Mine were, my friends were. It's just a fact of life. But the more and more you paint and the more you learn the techniques, you slowly pick it up and you get better and better and you improve over time. Like a mediocre painted army is better than just the grey plastic, essentially, that's the models already come to. So I would say give it a go. Unless you're terrible and you end up clumping paint on there really badly, then fair enough, give up, just play with grey plastic. But 99.9% of people can apply the paint properly, and just give it a whirl. Get bog standard 3 colours on there, get your model based, and even when you're playing in months to come, you will improve not only your painting and your gaming, but it'll look nice on the table. And yeah, that's about it really. Just give it a shot, give it a paint, go for it. If you're wanting to go to tournaments, then unfortunately you are going to have a painted army. Most tournament rules are like 3 standard colours and the model being based. So that's usually a very, very good starting point on where to go with painting miniatures. So like I was saying earlier, just give it a shot, give it a try. Again, your first few miniatures will not be great, but practice makes perfect. So yeah, so enjoy painting. So the gaming side of the hobby, and this is probably the biggest side of the hobby. Well, I suppose collecting's quite big as well, but I know quite a lot of people that buy the miniatures and just build them, get them straight on the table, and like I said, for the most part, it's just grey plastic across the board. So I want to look at power level versus points. I want to look at match play versus open versus narrative play, and then casual versus tournament play, and then sort of just building a solid army list. But I think when it comes to the army list, I'll go briefly over, but I actually want to do a full in-depth, probably 1 or 2 episode long, how to get the best out of your army, or how to make a competitive list. We start with power level versus points, and a brief history. Since I've started collecting Warhammer since the 3rd edition, all I've known is points. But power level versus points, which system is better and which system should you use for which type of game you're playing? So power level works quite well in open and narrative play, because that just allows anybody to stick down what miniatures they've got. It allows you to add in upgrades for next to nothing. So if you want to give a guy a las cannon, doesn't cost you any extra points or anything to the unit. The unit will just stay, for example, at 6 power level. Throw in as many big weapons as you want. It doesn't really make a difference. And it is kind of good for beginners. And I've seen a lot of beginners since 8th edition started that use power level. But if you start wanting to play more, I'd say, fairer games, then points is definitely the way to go. Everything has a point value. Now, in the new way of they do it in 8th edition, it's a bit confusing, as you have a unit, so like say a Space Marine, who would cost 14 points, or roughly 13 points maybe, and you want to give him a las cannon, then the las cannon costs 20 points. So you put them together and it's 34 or 33 points per that one Space Marine. Then you times that by 4, you get that amount. Add in the Sergeant, he's 14 points. You give him a Power Sword, which is 4 points. The Sergeant now costs 18 points. And before long, that unit of Devastators has cost you 132 points or 140 points, whatever. So briefly looking at the points versus power level, I think points for me is a better system overall for making the game a lot more fairer. So, for example, in the Tyranids Codex, let's take Hormagaunts for example. For 10 Hormagaunts, it's 3 power level, or 50 points. So for a full unit of 30 Hormagaunts, it's either 150 points or it's 9 power level. So say if I'm playing a 50 power level game, then 1/5 of my overall points have gone onto, a unit of Hormagaunts. They're not brilliant. They're good at just running forward. They're a great chaff unit, as people like to call them. Things that can get killed easily and you're not bothered about losing them. Or at 150 points, they, if you're playing even 1,000-point game, then that's 1/10 of your army. And it's a truer reflection, I think, on how a list should be built. But again, I will go into this in more detail in my sort of list building video that I'm planning on doing. So yeah, let's move on to the difference between match play or narrative or open. Well, open play is exactly what it says on the tin. It's open. You can throw down anything that you want, and it doesn't really make a difference. There will be some limitations. You just can't turn around to your opponent and go, well, here's all my Titans, and what have you brought? Oh, I've brought Tactical Marines. You'll have to agree with your opponent to begin with what to take. Narrative play is one of these ones where if you're doing a personalised campaign, maybe you've drawn out a world map between you and your friends, and you start off small, and maybe you do use power level, and it's, okay, my first army can be no more than 25 power level. And as the campaign progresses on, you tack on 5 power level each turn, or each game, to the point where you hit 100 power level. In the rule book, there are missions for narrative play, same with open play, that just change how the game works, and I've played a few, they're quite fun, but for me, again, I'm old school, I love match play, and let's have a look at that now. What is match play? Well, match play can be categorised into two subjects, really. The first one is Eternal War missions, where the missions are guided by the rules of the individual mission. For example, there was a mission in the last chapter approved where it was based around your characters getting objectives, and if they sat on the objectives, they'd accrue more and more points whilst they were on them objectives. There's a new one in the current chapter approved where I think it's got like Null Zone or something on these lines. It just has one objective in the centre of the board, and each turn, whoever has the most units within a certain bubble scores a victory point, and then the bubble gets smaller and smaller and smaller until you're basically on top of each other fighting. And the good thing as well, it gets rid of invulnerable saves, which is quite amusing, especially on like characters that rely on their invulnerable saves. Then you have the Maelstrom of War missions, and the Maelstrom of War missions, although sound daunting to begin with because you require a deck of cards to play the game, in reality is really easy because all you need to do is look at the mission, and the mission will tell you how many cards you draw per turn, and that's what you do. You literally draw a card and it might say secure objective 2, so all you have to do is get onto objective 2 and you score a victory point. At the same time, it could be something as simple as kill a unit using a shooting unit. Do that, you score a victory point. It's a very simple game type to play, and for me has made 40k even more fun. Like, I didn't play it when it was first introduced in the 6th and 7th editions, but since 8th edition and going to a recent tournament, which I will link up here, I absolutely love Maelstrom of War, and it's a great starting point for any beginner. Even like 1,000-point battle, you can easily be able to achieve with Maelstrom of War. So now we kind of know the 3 game types. Match play tends to be the more popular in gaming clubs or at your local Games Workshop because they're just a lot easier to play and quicker to play as well. So then you have the differences. You will have a casual scene and then a tournament scene. The casual scene will just be anybody that's down at the gaming club, just enjoying the hobby, that just wants a battle now and again. And starting off, that is probably the opponent you'd prefer to play, because the game will be kind of nice and relaxing, and you'll be able to sit back and just enjoy the game in general. Then, as you get into the hobby a year or two in, or maybe even a couple of months in, it depends when you really want to sink your teeth into tournament play, that's when it gets a little bit more butt clenching, I'd say. You really need to know what you're doing, you really need to know your army to be able to achieve victories in tournament play. There are some great YouTube channels out there that help with tournament play. I think Vanguard Tactics is one of them, so I'll leave a link down below. The gentleman that runs that channel is definitely a top gamer amongst the wargaming community. And then the likes of Tabletop Tactics as well, they're fantastic. On their actual website they give loads of information. So yeah, check them out if you're watching this video. And yeah, the difference between them is casual and hard mode. That's literally it. So although you might be relatively new to the hobby, you're looking at the tournament scene, a great place to start will be the Warhammer World Tournaments if you're based within the UK. They tend to play the rulebook missions, so again, after you've played them a few times down at your local club, you'll be on your way to understanding how to play. But maybe you're just struggling with that final punch in your list. So that's why I'm going to concentrate on a small mini series, or maybe even just one episode, where I'm going to the do's and don'ts of an army list, or how to build not necessarily a super competitive list, because there are meta lists out there. All you have to do is literally search them on Google, and you can find how to win with this and how to win with that, and you should spam this unit and you should spam this unit. But for me, that's a little bit boring. I prefer to be able to take an army and just do well with it, to be honest. I'm not looking to win the tournament most of the time. I'm looking to go have a good time with my mates, do as well as I can. Everybody loves winning, otherwise, you know, what you're doing playing the hobby if you don't want to win. So yeah, I think that's roughly about it. It's just very much a quick guide on the three main aspects of this hobby. I will be going into some of them, some areas in a lot more detail, like the start collecting box sets, the army lists, for example, and anything else that I think over time that a beginner might find useful. So if you've liked this episode, if you've liked this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. 89 Club, if you're watching, you know exactly what to do. Type it down in the comments below. And I'll see you on the next one. So, goodbye.